Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for episode 24 of SEO Fight Club. It's hard to believe, 24 episodes. I don't think I've ever had a YouTube show last this long, so it's a new record for me. I'm notorious for quitting projects that aren't excellent successes, and YouTube has always been difficult for me. How about you, Kyle? Is YouTube always been a challenge for you?
I think this is the first, my first official, this is my show. Clint, you've got SEO This Week, and you've got hundreds of episodes under your belt.
Yeah, the challenge isn't so much doing the show and getting YouTube to pay attention to you. It's just wanting to stick with it. You know, I'm at episode 126, and there's times where I wake up Tuesdays like, really, I got to do this show. So that's the hard part, staying motivated.
Yeah. I'd imagine in just about any endeavor you do, quitting is the number one problem with success.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, with these types of things, there isn't an immediate ROI. You know, so this is us giving our time to this, and so it's not like I'm putting in this hour, and now I know I'm going to get something in return. So it's an extremely long play if you're going to do it for like a marketing type deal, or to get your name, to get your brand out. That's a long play, and so even just staying with it for a few months, you'll never see an ROI, and after just a few months of work, it's years to get anything out of this.
For sure. Chase Rainier, love him or hate him, that guy, he put like 400 videos before he started taking off. So it's kind of the indication of the level of work you got to put into dedication for long term.
I think like Gary Vee even talks about that. Didn't he do like 1,000 episodes or whatever of his show before really he became anything?
Yeah, his wine club forever. That was like 2 years in the making before he kind of just took off.
Yeah, so don't give up. You got to stick with it. But let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. Do keywords have factors? So first, we'll do our housekeeping. You can learn about us at this website. SEO This Week, awesome resource. If you haven't heard about it, you're living under a rock. Huge time saver. Clint goes through hundreds of blog posts and news articles in our industry, lets you know the top 5 or 10 that matter most each week. So if you spend tons of time pouring through that content, you can get all that time back and probably get a better outcome just by watching Clint's show. So Clint, what can people expect this week?
This week, the biggest article we looked at was actually from Brian Dean, and he did a SEO services survey. He shows the methodology of doing that survey and the results of it. I thought that was really cool. And we also talked about how he's building his content and promoting it as well.
Awesome. So definitely check it out. There was a recent episode before that too that had Moon and Marie on it, and that was a really cool episode. So go back and watch the back episodes too.
Yeah, those two are crazy smart and a whole lot of fun.
So our Skype group is full. We will be announcing a fix for this problem in the very near future. If you want to be notified, you can join the wait list, and we will email you specifically about the solution.
We've been saying this for a while.
I was getting ready to say that.
But we're actually kind of hoping that we could announce it today, but we can't announce it today. But I think actually within 7 days. I think this time next week, at the latest, we'll be announcing it. It's exciting. It's exciting and it's fun. I think it's gonna be great.
Yeah, which is a bomb in and of itself. So if you want to get notified the minute we have something to say, join the wait list. Otherwise, wait for the show and we'll announce it. So our topic: do keywords have factors? Obviously, some search terms invoke different features of Google. Some keywords get the shopping carousel. Some keywords get different blended results from the different search engines Google has: Google News, image search, other things like that. Some keywords have ads. Some keywords are disqualified from showing ads. So we know that different keywords can trigger different features within Google, but does Google actually change its resource allocations based on keyword factors? So it's kind of a weird and highly technical topic. What are your initial thoughts on this topic?
Initially, I'd say absolutely. The different keywords have different requirements, and what you need to do for one keyword will not work for every keyword because things change keyword to keyword and niche to niche.
And so that's an interesting comment, because it kind of gets confused with the notion that web pages have factors, and we're all very used to the concept that a web page has a factor. How many times do I use a keyword in the title? How many times do I use it on page? How many backlinks does my URL have? And that's a web page having factors. But the thing I really want to try to talk about is, do the keywords themselves have factors? Is Google saying this keyword is allowed to have more search results than that keyword because this keyword is more worthy to us? And so it's kind of its own little meta space above the notion that web pages have factors. Does Google treat keywords different in resource allocation? And if that doesn't make any sense to you, I don't blame you. We're going to look at some examples in the field. So the questions, do the allocations of resources Google provides change from keyword to keyword? And we'll look at that if it doesn't make sense. Another question: do the behaviors of searchers change from keyword to keyword? And obviously they do. So people will search different volumes. They'll have different click-through rates on different search terms. They're looking for different types of content from keyword to keyword. And then, ultimately, what are Google's goals in allocating resources based on keywords? And so these are kind of the things I'm trying to answer by looking at Google in this light. So we take a search in Google, for example. We type in the word Google, and Google estimates that they have about 16.5 billion pages that mention Google. So I'm inclined to believe that. Google's a very popular term. But then they only display 117 results for that term. So out of those 16 billion pages they estimate they know about, they're only showing 117 of them. And so this is an interesting allocation of resources for Google's own brand as a search term. And so this gets me thinking, well, what about my brand? Is Google going to allocate more search results for my brand as a keyword or less? Any thoughts so far on this, Kyle?
Well, I know what the next slides are, so.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll continue.
Yeah.
So I clicked. You'll see up here it says repeat the search with the omitted results included. So I wanted to see how many total results we could get when we turn Google's filter off. So I clicked that link to repeat the search and to turn the filter off. And for the technical SEOs, this is the ampersand filter equals 0 trick in the URL. And so the estimated results went up by a few hundred million. So the filter did something to the estimated results. And the number of results allocated went up to 439. So it went to 100 and change to 400 and change. So we kind of know the total results that Google's willing to show, and we know the filtered results, which is, in my mind, kind of like the number of those total results that they're willing to put in high value cache for performance. So the filtered results are what most people will see most of the time because they're not going to click that link to see the unfiltered. And so those will be in cache, they'll be in performant, they'll be performant. And so we have some numbers here that we can kind of work with. And so when I look at the allocation that Google is making for a keyword, we're looking at these numbers.
Do you think it's fair to say that they're the most relevant, like that they are actually the most relevant? Because everybody knows once you kind of get deep into results, the quality does drop off significantly.
Well, at this point, I'm just kind of trying to figure out things we can measure and look at for the kinds of resources Google is allocating to keywords. And one of the things I noticed is that for a keyword like eBay and keywords in general, they estimate about 128 results at the top of the page. And then down at the bottom of the page, they're like, for the 142 we already displayed, these two numbers are on the exact same page and they don't equal. So when they rendered this page, they had both numbers. One is more appropriate than the other in theory. And they displayed them both. So I was like, what the hell? Which one's right? So I counted. I went and manually counted the search results, and both numbers were wrong. So, one of the first things I learned is that Google can't count. So
we already know that Google can't read. Now we know Google can't count.
Yeah. So Google is working hard 29 hours a day, 9 days a week, 416 days a year. So we've seen similar accuracy issues in Google Search Console. We've seen accuracy issues in Google Analytics. We've seen similar accuracy issues in Keyword Planner. And, what we've really come to know is that any number Google gives you, you really have to verify independently because they may have garbage in, garbage out issues. They may, left hand might not know what the right hand's doing inside of Google. But clearly, that they have problems, which I find a little entertaining because they cram EAT at us so much, trustworthiness. Well, if we can't trust the numbers you're giving us, do you have trustworthiness, Google? And if you're experts in, what you're doing, how come you can't be accurate? If your AI is so advanced and mind-blowing, how come you can't count? And these aren't things that have been problems recently. Google's been like this for a decade or more, and they just don't care to fix it. Or at least it seems like they just don't care to do better. And so instead of, thinking, wow, their AI is mind-blowing and changing the world, why isn't anybody saying, why can't Google count? It's just kind of weird. But looking at more of their issues, this is from Google Analytics. I went into a bunch of websites and looked at all the misattributions. So Google's a search engine. We'd assume they'd be good at classifying organic. But when you look at all of these, they're all classified by default as referral. And they're obviously search traffic from the source mediums. And some of these are competitors. Some of these are safe search. Some of these are syndicated search. Let me find a syndicated one. Search.charter.net. This is an ISP homepage that's syndicating Google search. It's still Google search results delivering this traffic, but because it's syndicated, they call it referral. There's Safe Search, AdGuard.com, those types of things. Century Link, that's another ISP syndicated search. And Search Encrypt, Safe Search. Some of these are different languages, Yahoo and Spanish. And Google's known about us.search.yahoo.com, which has switched between Bing and Google for a long time. They're calling it referral. But this has been a known organic domain for over a decade, and it's still listed as referral. So if Google has expertise in search, this shouldn't be an issue. So of the EAT thing that they force on all of us, they're not trustworthy in the data that they're pushing out, and they don't seem to show expertise in organic search. And if you're an SEO, I guarantee there is some SEO out there that's making commissions or getting bonus based on performance. If you don't fix this in your reporting, you're probably leaving 40% on the table. And you can go into Google Analytics and create custom reports that fix this issue. But just note that all of this organic traffic from your SEO probably isn't getting counted. Any comments on organic attribution?
It is really interesting that they can't see something coming from google.ca as organic in the top left corner.
Yep.
I mean, there are no links, So in case people are missing the point on this, referral means it's a link that's sitting somewhere and is coming to your site. They're referring to your site. None of these things are referring any kind of traffic. It's a search that was done in the engines here, and you would think that, especially their own properties, they'd be able to figure out. But even if they can identify it, if they could identify that, okay, it's us.search.yahoo.com, they should know that that's a search engine. That doesn't seem too tricky.
Yeah, is a disreputable SEO, I can do better organic traffic analysis than Google Analytics can, and that's sad, and I say I'm a disreputable one because I know Google doesn't like me. I know they don't like the things I say because it doesn't make them feel good about what they're doing. But the thing is, they're doing a bad job in many respects. They're giving you bad numbers on their website, and they're giving you bad data. And what's worse is I have to wonder, is there an agenda behind this? Are they doing this just to make competing search engines look less effective than Google? Are they doing this to make SEO in general look less effective? Because that's the outcome it has. And so I have to wonder if it's incompetence or are they being malicious? Take your pick.
Is there another option that it's just something that they would like to fix but cannot?
Well, you can't say that their AI is so advanced and they can automatically detect the black hats, but they can't count. They can't attribute, us.search.yahoo.com is organic, even though it's been obviously organic search for the past 10 years.
Sure, it doesn't seem too tricky to sort that one out.
Yeah. So at some point, it's really down to, is it incompetence or is it malicious? And so I don't know. I wish they'd fix it. There are ways to independently verify your data, and a few of them are here. So comparing your order count from your payment processor to what you're seeing in Google Analytics e-commerce tracking. Same thing with gross revenue. And you can calculate lossiness. So that's an important thing. Like I used to calculate how lossy is Google Analytics in terms of tracking orders. And I typically found that Google Analytics for me was about 25% lossy. So you probably don't want to do your month-end reporting out of analytics. Session counts, comparing those from your application reporting to your visitor counts, they should be roughly equivalent. They'll never be exactly equivalent. Traffic, same thing. They should kind of be in the ballpark. Your application log should have peaks at the same time Google Analytics shows peaks. And you can find, again, the amount of lossiness by comparing the two, because usually the GA numbers come in short to what your application logs on the server. And yeah, having competing platforms for doing traffic analysis, using competing SEO tools, and manually spot checking the information you're seeing.
Ted, there was a question that came in about third-party tools, and in particular, Clicky. Do you, and I don't know the answer to this, do you know how valid they are or how good they are at reporting traffic and attribution?
Well, any system where it's relying on JavaScript snippets like in Tag Manager or to be pasted into your web page, those things are all fallible because in theory, somebody could be clicking a link before they've had time to execute on the page. And so there's always some lossiness in those kinds of systems. Typically the most accurate numbers you're going to get are going to be from your application logs if you're logging data out of various events occurring in your application, or your web server logs. But those can be difficult to analyze if you have a high volume website. So as far as which one's best, I'd say the best one is to use a variety of methods to keep them all honest and to cross-reference and check them. And if you make calculating lossiness part of your monthly review, you know, how lossy was Google Analytics this month? That's a good thing because it can expose bugs and technical problems in your website. If you're doing development and you see a problem in logging, you can usually catch those fires early if you're looking for them. But if you're not looking, you might go several months and then realize your data has a big problem. So getting back to these field observations, another interesting thing is, Google says, are you delivering quality experiences to your users? Well, what happened to page 3, Google? I clicked on page 3 and it went away in the navigation. And quite frequently what happens here when you click on this and there's no results to show, they show you a page of ads. You're like, no page 3, here's some ads.
That's great, because then they charge somebody for that.
Yeah, so again, going back to the advice Google gives but doesn't follow, that's another issue. And so you have to be careful if you're, quantifying the resources that Google's allocating. Here they said they allocated 3 pages of results, but it was actually 2. They lied. In some cases, like for this keyword, they eliminated the estimated search results. This may be a clue as to the direction things are going regarding that feature, but they took it straight off the page in favor of showing this carousel. So who knows what the future may bring for some of these metrics. And in regards, we're going to look at some data very shortly here, but in regards to Google's motivations, I kind of think they're right there on the page. And one thing I noticed was that very recently they added the fave icons into the mobile search results, which we're looking at here. And it struck me as adaflage, which is what I call the act of camouflaging your ads. Because what we end up seeing here is, oh, there's something going on here, something going on here, something going on here, but hey, these are all equivalent, right? That's camouflaging an ad to look like a search result.
No, it's absolutely amazing. You mentioned this the other day that that's what was going on. I hadn't really thought about that, but that's why they decided to add the little favicons, if you will, to these areas. But it's so easy to not see that that's an ad.
Yeah, and those of us who are old timers, I'm gonna date myself with this, but back when Google was new, before they made AdWords, Google promised, they swore up and down that they would never commingle ads and organic search results. They said we would not do that. That would be a betrayal of your trust. It would be immoral to do that. But look how far we've come. They're actively engaging in adaflage campaigns. And so I think that kind of speaks to where their head is, I think that's a bit telling. It's a clue, in my opinion. So looking at some data. So what we have here are some test keywords that we ran through. And I gathered the data. So the filtered estimated number of results, the filtered actual number of results shown, the unfiltered estimated number of results, and the unfiltered results shown. And then based on this data, we can kind of see the total possible results the keyword has and which percentage were primary results versus supplemental results. Now, don't confuse this with the primary index and supplemental index. They could be those things, but those are internal terms that Google uses. And they'll come back and say, well, that's not what we do internally, so it's all null and void. I don't care what Google does internally. I'm measuring things I can see, and I'm giving them names so that we can talk about them. The primary results are the results that you get for each term without them being hidden by a link that you have to click. So these are the filtered results, but displayed by default. They're the high volume results that probably most people will see for the keyword. The supplemental results are the ones you get extra in addition to the primary to get to this total amount. So if you click that link to get rid of the filter, this is how many more you'll see. And so I calculate the percentage of how many are shown by default and how many more do you have to disable the filter to see. And so we can see the allocation and the primary results here ranges from 17% at the worst and 56% at the best. And what I quickly noticed by eyeballing, well, which ones get the bigger allocation in those primary search results, to me, it looks like all the ones that have the best opportunity to produce advertising revenue. And I found it a little bit concerning that Google's competitors get the least allocation possible. Now, these are all trademarks, and when you look at these ones, they're not even eligible for ads to be displayed. And so there's no revenue opportunity on these. So if they had an automated system, maybe they aren't willfully denying Amazon of allocation. But if they had an automated system that says, hey, favor the allocation of search results to things that produce revenue, the net effect would be to knock down anything that has an enforced trademark in Google. And
Ted, I think some people may have missed what this chart is. Can you give a one-liner on filtered estimate, filtered, unfiltered, unfiltered estimate?
Yeah. So when you go to Google and you search for DUI lawyer Los Angeles, Google estimates that there are 6.72 million pages about that topic. That's the estimated number at the top. But in the filtered results set, they only show 200 search results.
So 20 pages is what they go to.
Yeah. And then in the unfiltered, they estimate 6.98 million.
That's you clicking the little button that says run this unfiltered.
Yes. And then they show you 395 search results.
Nearly 40 pages of results.
Yeah. So 51% of the maximum possible results are showed in the filtered mode.
Okay.
So we can see their allocation to that is 51%. 200 results for this keyword, 51, which is 51% of the total results they will ever show you under any circumstance.
Makes sense. Thank you.
And so, yeah, this is the allocation that people will see, most of the time, unless you're willing to scroll to the end and click the link to turn off the filtering. This is what the world is seeing. This is the allocation to the keyword.
And what you're seeing is that the opportunities that they have, the more revenue generating opportunities with a term like games, they are showing more results of the total results that they actually have.
Yeah, exactly. So of the total results that they will ever give you out of search, they're giving a higher percentage of those results in the filtered set for things that appear to produce revenue. Now, there may be other reasons for why this is. I don't know what those are, but it really looks like this is a system that's optimizing for revenue. So it's not optimizing for the best information retrieval to answer the search. It looks like it's optimizing to produce the best ad revenue. At a glance, that's what it looks like to me.
Makes sense.
So I decided to do the same thing using the site colon operator, which I know a lot of people claim is bogus, don't use it, but it still works. And I've always felt it's been misused by the SEO community. I view it as a diagnostic tool, and I'll show you why. When I did it, we still saw, total results in the same ballpark, but the allocations of using this operator are very, very different. And so it appears to disable filtering largely. Except for PopCap, where when I use the operator, I noticed that the allocations between primary and supplemental were very uncharacteristic. And when I went and looked at PopCap, I could easily find in the results problem URLs that were getting filtered. And
what is that site? What is popcap.com?
They're a game site.
Okay.
And so what I've found over time is that for small websites, it can be very diagnostic. So I put in Page Optimizer Pro here, a little shout out.
I've heard that's a good tool.
Yeah, I think so. 43 pages, estimated 43, found 43, unfiltered, estimated 43, delivered 43, primary result set 100%, all 43. So when I looked at using the site colon filter on your website, I'm like, okay, this looks good. The only way this would be bad if I said, hey, Kyle, how many web pages do you have? If you turned around and said, well, my website has 2,005.
Holy crap, we got 1,000 pages.
Then there's a problem. But if you say, no, my website has 43 pages.
That sounds about right.
then site colon was diagnostic for your website to show that it's in good order.
Sure.
And PopCap here, the fact that we got 50% instead of close to 100%, Mayday, we've got some kind of an issue. So site colon can still be diagnostic for issues with indexing in Google for small websites. When you do a big website that's going to have more pages than the total number of results, it might statistically find a problem, but it's not guaranteed to, because now you're sampling. Now you're looking at, 372 pages out of, millions or thousands. So for small sites, this can be a diagnostic tool. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I sit back and I think, well, do keywords have factors? And so what we know is that the allocation of search results for a keyword changes from keyword to keyword. It appears to favor larger allocations for keywords that stand to generate ad revenue. And that's an appearance. It's not a fact. So you could read it a different way if you like. So I have to stop back and think, well, what could the factors that keywords have be? What could those factors be? And so I think the obvious ones are the pay-per-click demand for a keyword. How strongly do people want to advertise on it? The cost per click, how much are they willing to spend to get a click off that keyword? The total search volume of that keyword could be a factor for the keyword. How likely are searchers to paginate the result set? Are they typically one and done searches, or do people really hunt through them? Click-through rate. Do people click on things that they see in those search results for the keyword? Are there enforced trademarks? So can ads even be shown for the keyword? And then, of course, there's all the things that would enable. Is there commercial intent? Should it show the Google shopping carousel? Those types of things too. And then, what are some of the KPIs for a keyword? And it's those, largely those data points I was pulling, the estimated results, the total number of results allocated to a keyword, the percentage that are primary results in the filtered set. Are ads showing up? Which ad units? Is it just the top? Is it top and bottom? And then volatility, because one thing I didn't even touch on in this analysis is maybe there's something to the ratio of the number of pages that use a keyword and the number of results. So if you have, a smaller ratio, maybe there's less volatility in the volatile middle results. And this notion is that, the best web pages will rank at the top and they kind of solidify their positions, but everybody down in the middle and the bottom of the rankings, they kind of timeshare with all the pages that use the keywords. And so it tends to be very volatile in the middle. And as the value of your content improves, as the quality of your content improves, in theory, it should solidify you into not time sharing with every page out there that happens to mention the word. And what we see in testing is that it looks like Google is testing content out in the middle. They're bringing in pages from the outside saying, well, let's try and get some user metrics on this page. It's maybe a new page or an updated page. Let's see if it does anything special and is worthy of rising in the ranks. And so we suspect there's some sort of testing going on. Any thoughts on those ideas?
All sounds good to me, really. I mean, I'm on board with you.
Yeah,
I'm in.
This is all cutting edge theory crafting. So keep in mind that we definitely have our tinfoil hats on when we do this kind of analysis. But we have to look at it. We have to talk about it to try and figure this out. And one of the things, let me go back. If I was trying to make a tool that estimated keyword difficulty, I would want to know about this allocation percentage. That seems like it would be a fundamental number on the difficulty of a keyword. Because if Google's filtering 83% of what you put into a keyword just off the top before it even looks at your page, there's a higher failure rate for even trying to rank for this keyword. I mean, that seems core to keyword difficulty, in my opinion.
I think something else you have to consider too are the number of filtered results. You can see that those seem to correlate just eyeballing it with difficulty.
Yep. So, I'd want to look at this allocation of resources on Google's end on a keyword by keyword basis if I was trying to estimate that. Now, what is the end result? How should you use it? Well, that I'm not so certain. But I mean, this is stuff that you can go out and look at and measure in the field yourself.
The thing that I actually find interesting is that there are different numbers for filtered and unfiltered. It would seem that because the results get so bad once you get past a certain page number that they wouldn't continue to produce them. There would just be a hard this many.
Well,
and do you think that would save them money?
And in the past, they had a lot more results than this. We used to go out to 1,000 results in the past, and so the fact that in total we're getting less than half of that. I mean, Google's done a big takeaway on the resources they allocated to how many results can be in their index and findable. They took a lot of them away. And that might be because there's a lot more pages and a lot more keywords than they used to have in their database. So they're probably working with finite resources. And looks like for a given keyword, you're kind of in the ballpark of there can be 400 results about for a keyword. And only a certain percentage of those will be cached and shown regularly.
Right.
So that's kind of what Google's allocating. And what's interesting is, how many results these different keyword types of keywords are allowed to have.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that it's going to leave you feeling definitely unsatisfied, but we don't really know what all this means. We're just looking at it, and we're sharing that information with you because this is what we do day in and day out. We look at it and go, what the heck does this mean? And this is the latest one that we're looking at. So any final thoughts before we go to questions?
No, I've got some of the questions queued up. When looking at why this is going on, a lot of people are kind of leaning towards the malicious, I think, or kind of the ad idea. Other concepts that seem to be coming up are that it's such a low priority that having those numbers match doesn't make them any more or less money, so it doesn't matter. Another idea from Lee is that they're just lazy, which could kind of go into that idea that it doesn't matter. It doesn't impact their bottom line. People are not using Google because of a mismatch in numbers. You're the only person that cares, Ted.
Yeah.
So as a result, they just don't care. It isn't worth it for them to fix, would be an idea.
Well, it begs the question, if they don't care there, and it's, the numbers aren't accurate in Google Search Console, and there's accuracy issues in Google Analytics, then should we all be using those things? That would be my counter notion is, if we don't hold them accountable, then should we be using these systems in that way?
For sure. Simon, who uses a lot of tools, and if you ever have tool questions, go to Simon. But he says he uses Clicky and Matomo as checks against Google Analytics. Kind of, I think he bounces off of those two tools and then GA to see and get an accurate picture. Simon also said he heard that DUI attorney volume is down, and he thinks it might be because of Uber and Lyft. Ted, have you seen this? I know that you use DUI Los Angeles, or DUI attorney Los Angeles as one of your canaries.
I don't know specifically on the volume, but in the past, before Uber and Lyft existed, I've been out to dinner and had a glass of wine, and my thinking is totally shifted as a result of Uber and Lyft. And now before I leave the house, I say, am I going to have a glass of wine with dinner? Let's take a Lyft. And so I'd imagine that, hopefully volume is down because of those services. And I'd be surprised if it isn't. And I hope that it is. I hope the world hopes that it is. There's really no reason to drink and drive when for $6 you can avoid the nightmare.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you think about, worst case scenario, you're adding $20 to $30 total to your evening. If that is a prohibitive number, then maybe you shouldn't be going out.
Yep.
The funny thing about those kind of industries, it's kind of like the water restoration or storm damage type industries. It's like, well, we really don't want death and destruction, but then we make a lot of money off of it. I don't want to cheer for the storm. I don't want to cheer for the DUI, but man, it would be great if they happen.
Yeah, I don't think DUI lawyers will become obsolete, and I don't think they'll go out of business. I think they'll switch over to other issues. So, there's always going to be a ton of people falling asleep at the wheel and driving tired, and there are other types of accidents where, both parties are at fault. There's no shortage of accidents in the world, but hopefully the avoidable ones can be avoided.
I also don't think the world would cry too much if the market for DUI attorneys had to contract a little bit.
Yeah. I hope that medical malpractice lawyers eventually go out of business too.
That'd be just fine.
They're smart people. They'll adapt. They're lawyers.
All right. So perhaps the last question. With this concept, would it be advantageous to put AdSense on a site because Google would rank a site higher if they stand to make money from a user visiting a site over one without Google Ads? So that's the idea of is AdSense a ranking factor?
Well, I don't think AdSense is a ranking factor, but this Adaflage, this existed before Google started doing it. And in the AdSense world, people used to make their AdSense ads look like their primary navigation and content blocks. And Google will actually kick you out of the AdSense program if you engage in Adaflage with AdSense. But they will turn around and do Adaflage themselves in their own search results. Don't do the fraudulent stuff with AdSense. It's potentially a crime. So it is fraud at a certain level. So don't click your own ads. And I've known people who have had employees who clicked their own ads on their own accounts, but got their employer banned from AdSense. And Google is so fierce about that behavior that employer, even though they did nothing wrong and nothing wrong happened on their own AdSense, they were barred from AdSense for over a decade. So it's no joke, especially if your employer is making, $500,000, $1 million a year or more in ad revenue. You got to be super careful about anything resembling a problem. But it is very hypocritical that Google is engaged in the very activity that will get you kicked out of their program.
All right. Well, I think that's it for the day. A parting thought, Matt. says that on a study from UC Davis that DUI arrests in San Diego are down 30%. So
Well, that's great news. So
that would be
good job, Uber and Lyft. You made the world a better place.
huzzah.
All right.
Ted, thanks so much. I'll let you send it off.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and join the wait list if you want the earliest notification. Otherwise, come back next week, and hopefully we have something to announce. Thank you all, and have a good week.
Thanks, guys.